verse 4. Here's the first thing that it does for us. Read 1 John chapter 1, 3, and 4. John said,
we proclaim to you what we have seen and heard.
Read.
So that you also may have fellowship with us.
All right. We're going to tell you what we've seen, what we heard, so you can have fellowship with us. Read.
And our fellowship is with the Father.
Our fellowship is with the Father and His Son. Read.
Jesus Christ.
Read.
We write this to make our
He said,
joy complete.
now I want you to read that again because I don't think they heard you. He said, we do what?
We write this to make our joy complete.
Now, the first thing that fellowship does for us, it makes us happy. He said, we write you that you might know the joy. See, the joy that the apostle had in being in fellowship with God, they wanted him to have that same fellowship. Some of us want others to have the same fellowship that we have, but it has nothing to do with God's fellowship. It has to do with gossiping, it has to do with lying, it has to do with murmuring, it has to do with saying things about other people, it has to do with trying to keep folks from coming to church, it has to do with trying to run folks out of the church, it has to do with foolishness, evilness, and sin. But John said, we got a fellowship with God, and we want you to have the same fellowship because this fellowship makes us happy. Let me tell you something. I don't know about you, Brother Moses, but I have no reason whatsoever in this life at my point of being unhappy about anything. It doesn't bother me, can you hear me? Not to have no money in my wallet. That don't have anything to do with my fellowship with the Father. It doesn't bother me if I have to ask somebody, will you take me to church? Because I want fellowship with God. I want to be happy. I want to stay happy. And my happiness is having fellowship with God. If you got fellowship with God, it'll keep you happy. Somebody read verse 5 and verse 6. Let me tell you something else. This fellowship with God will do for us. Read.
But whoso keepeth,
He said, whoso keepeth.
in him verily is the love of God perfected.
He said, verily is the love of God. Read. Hereby we know. Read.
He that saith he abideth in him ought himself.
He said, he that says that he abideth in him. Read.
Ought himself also so to walk.
If you say you abide in him, then you ought to walk in him. Read.
Even as he walked.
Even as he walked. Read. I'm missing a verse. Verse 5 and 6.
This then is the message.
There we go. This then is the message that we heard of him.
And declare to you.
That what?
God is light.
That God is light. Read.
And in him is no darkness.
In God there's no darkness at all. Read.
If we say that we have.
If we say, there we go. If we say we what?
Have fellowship with him.
If we say we have fellowship with the God that's in the light, read.
And walk in darkness.
And we walk in darkness.
We lie.
And we do not the truth. So having the fellowship with God not only keep us happy, but it keep us honest. Amen. He said, because if we say we walk in the light when God is the light, if we say we have fellowship with the Father and the fellowship of the Father is being in the light and we're not in the light, therefore we're not being honest with the Father, because you can't have fellowship with the Father who is light while you're walking in darkness. Amen. Don't you want to be honest? Isn't it a wonderful feeling that you can go home and know you hadn't talked about nobody? Amen. Having a fellowship with God will keep your mouth shut. Amen. Having a fellowship with God will keep your eyes where they need to be, inside your head. Having a fellowship with God will close your ear when somebody brings some garbage and try to shove down your ear. I'm talking about the fellowship with God will not only keep you happy, but it'll keep you honest. Yes, now somebody read verse 7. Let's wrap this up. Read verse 7. He said what? I'm going to have to get a sister.
Here we go.
Read it for
But
me.
if we walk in the light, as he is
read.
the light, we have fellowship.
All right, you got to start that over. I wasn't even in position to run. So now I'm in position, all right? Start at verse 7. Read.
But if we walk in the light,
He said if we walk in the light,
as he is in the light,
as he is in the light,
we have fellowship.
we have fellowship one with another,
And
the blood of Christ,
His Son
cleanses us from all sin. See, being in fellowship with God will keep us happy. Being in fellowship with God will keep us honored. And being in fellowship with God will keep us holy. Amen. I can come into church and I can can walk like a Christian. I can act like a Christian. I can talk like a Christian because I'm holy in the eyes of God. Now, to me, this may look at me and say he thinks he's better than everybody else. That's what he thinks. But God just declared if I walk in the light as he is the light, he and I have fellowship together. Now, let me close this lesson out. I'm talking about the fellowship of God. When you got the fellowship of God, you have a peace that passes all understanding. Oh man, what a fellowship. When you have fellowship with God, you have joy unspeakable. What a fellowship. When you have fellowship with God, you can get across those bridges that seem to have no way across. What a fellowship with God. When you have fellowship with God, you can make it through a raging storm and any sea that might try to hold you back. What a fellowship with God. When you have fellowship with God, there is nothing that you can't do. There is no prayer that you can't pray. There's no song that you can't sing. What a fellowship. What a fellowship that we have with God. Just by being in the light. So let me tell you. And this is not me saying, but this is God. Because God is the one that determines if we have fellowship with him or not. You and I might determine if we don't speak to each other. You and I might determine if we're going to shake hands or not. You and I might determine if we're going to hug and embrace each other.